putting everything I have into it, not really focusing on next year, whether, I leave or stay, whatever. Obviously, I have the option to do either one. Kind of my mindset's been that I'm going to move on, but who knows? There's a lot of things that could happen. So just really focusing on this year, not trying to look ahead, not trying to worry about that. Obviously, I can't control it, and really just trusting that God has a plan for me no matter where that is, no matter where I go, whether that's across the country, whether that's close to home, where I stay another year, no matter what it is, we'll work it out.
Jets. Jets are in the driver's seat for that first pick right now. Trevor knows it. Brian Westbrook, you in or out on Trevor Lawrence staying at Clemson if Brandon's Jets get that #1 pick?
My first thought was, what happens if you get hurt? But then I started thinking about Tua. Tua got hurt in a devastating injury. He still was picked number 5 overall. So the quarterback position seems to be a position where it doesn't matter even if you do get hurt. The number one question I would have for the Jets is, how are you going to protect me? Look at Justin Herbert. Look at Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert, big-time receivers, big guys, and a run game. Same thing with Joe Burrow. Big-time receivers and a run game. What do the Jets have? None of those things. And so how do you protect me? That's the question that the Jets need to answer to Trevor Lawrence.
B, 90% of what you said was right. 90% of what Trevor said was right. This was easy. How do you go away from the Dak thing? You can't afford to stay another year. There's too much on the line. Taking the field, it could be, anytime you take the field, could be your last play. For that reason, in the Dak Prescott situation, and it happens all the time, you have to move on.
And by the way, unless Trevor Lawrence is going to go back to get his PhD, who says the Jets ain't going to have the #1 pick next year as well? If you're waiting for the Jets to not be awful, you might be waiting a long time. And prayers up to our ace producer, Sam Pepper, who roots for the Knicks, the Mets, the Jets, and the University of Wisconsin. Was the only thing going in his life well sports-wise, and their quarterback just got COVID. Pepper, I love you. I feel bad for you this morning, brother.
And the backup
quarterback.
quarterback.
To that, Sam Pepper. And the
both quarterbacks got
back to our top story this morning.
Oh, my God.
The Dodgers, they're your World Series champs, but the way it happened, leaving some questioning one big pitching move by Tampa last night. That's next. First things first. Saturday at noon Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. All right, with that, we head to Dallas, where this Cowboys season continues to spiral out of control. Remember when this team had Super Bowl hopes? Well, since then, they lost their starting quarterback, maybe their backup as well. Their defense is indefensible. Their coaching staff's getting called out by players. And Jerry Jones has hit the boiling point. All that in his weekly radio hit. Take a listen to this.
Does your team have a leadership void?
When we're in the offensive line, where
just overall, when these.
But seriously. Where would you have a leadership void? Is it an experience void? Is it a talent void? Is it a leadership void? I'm not trying to be cute here. The answer is no. The answer is no.
I'm asking.
There's not a. Well, just shut up and let me answer. No.
Jerry, when you go into the locker room, what I'm asking is, do you see the intangibles? You're not asking
me that. I gave you the answer. When I go into the locker room, there's no leadership void in my eyes.
Okay.
Now, that's your answer. Let's move on.
All right, we should mention Jerry Jones did go on to apologize profusely, said it was just a culmination of a lot of frustration building up this season. But Brian Westbrook back with us. Brian, what was your reaction to Jerry Jones' comments there?
Jenna, I just had to get into my billionaire mindset. If I had a couple $billion and I owned America's team, I had a football thing, and there was an expectation that my team was skilled enough, talented enough to be a Super Bowl team, I probably would feel just like Jerry Jones. The other part to that is, with all that talent that we had on our roster, we should be going out and getting the best coach available. We want the best of the best. And he came back with Mike McCarthy, and up to this point, Mike McCarthy has disappointed. So I understand how Jerry Jones feels. I understand that he feels like we've been cheated in some way. And to be honest with you, there is some type of issue. Here are four things that I think are the problem. Effort, carelessness with the football, penalties, and injuries. 3 of those things fall upon Mike McCarthy's shoulders. He has to be able to fix effort, penalties, and carelessness with the football. He can't control the injuries, but it's the head coach. And an extension of Jerry Jones, because he picked the head coach, those are the reason why this football team continues to lose and be a disappointment. They have to figure a way out. And unfortunately, looking at the head coach and the people that the head coach hired has to be the beginning of that process.
Yeah, I absolutely think that there's a leadership void there, and I felt that for some time now. You do have Dak that's sitting there, and he's obviously hurt now, and he was that guy. I don't think Dak was that emotional guy. He was that type of leader that led by his work and how he approached work every single day. But when you look at that roster, you just don't see that guy. You don't look at it and say, oh, that's the leader. And then you can look at the sidelines right now. What you should see on the sidelines when the Dallas Cowboys take the field and they're losing, you should see those guys getting after each other. You should see those guys having healthy communication, right, where they should be holding each other accountable. You just don't see that. Guy blows the coverage. Nobody says anything. Nobody even picks the guy up. Nobody yells at the guy. They just go back to the sideline. You know, guy throws an interception. Guy fumbles the ball. Nobody says anything. Not a coach, not a player. Those are the things that you want to see coming from the sideline. When you see that, you'll then see the leaders emerge. I don't know who that is. If you look across the NFL, you can say, wow, that Bobby Wagner, that is the leader. Oh, that Russell Wilson, that is the leader. When you look at this team, I can't tell you who that is.
Brian, I got a question for you. There's no one on the Cowboys who's officially the captain, where no one's wearing the C on the uniform because Mike McCarthy does it another way where he's like, we're going to pick captains every week. You're a captain. You're a captain. You know, it's like my son's soccer team. Do you think that when things are going well, that works? But when things are going bad, it's like, well, we got to talk to the captains. Also, who's the captain this week? I'm not quite sure.
Well, you know, when I was in Philadelphia, Andy picked captains, different captains every single week, but he had a core group of leaders that he would meet with that held the team accountable. Right now, one of the biggest problems with Dallas, and Brandon, you talked about it, is who are those leaders? Well, Zeke is certainly one of those leaders. La'el Collins is one of those leaders. Tyrann Mathieu, he's one of those leaders. And those guys aren't playing very well. Lawrence, he's one of those leaders. Those are the guys that aren't playing very well. So you're asking these guys that are injured, you're asking who are their leaders where they're either injured or aren't playing very well. So they can't be the one to step up and say, hey, we need to play better, because everybody else will be turning around and say, well, you need to play better. You need to do a better job. The other thing that I have to point out is that... But
doesn't that say a lot? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but doesn't that say a lot? But how many times have you had a bad season, Brian? You can have a bad game. You can have a bad couple games, but you can't have a bad season. I can't tell you have you ever had a bad season?
No, I've had seasons where I should have done a little better, but no, not a bad season in that way. No.
But and that's my thing. So when you talk about
they have some issues where they need to get their leaders, whoever those guys are, need to play better. That's the thing. And when you have guys like Xavier Howard coming out saying the things that he said, the next person that you should have heard from in that locker room was a leader stepping up and saying, that's not Dallas Cowboy football. That's not how we're going to play here. We need to set the standard differently. Unfortunately, we haven't heard that from anyone in Dallas.
Yeah, they need to go out and figure out, and it's not going to happen right now. It's going to happen after the season.